And a good Tuesday, right, Ed?
Yeah, it's Tuesday. It's a great state of Ohio, at least.
Half the time, I don't know if I'm in Laurel, Delaware, or Sharptown, Maryland. I'm just. You expect me to get my days right? I don't think so. But, ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, friends, Romans, and countrymen, lend us both of your ears one more time because we've got a great show planned for you tonight. So whether you're down the street, around the corner, across America, or somewhere around this great big world, thank you for tuning in. Here's what we want you to do: push this out, share it with your friends, your family, your coworkers, so on and so forth. Ring them up, email them, however you contact people, and let them know that we're on the air one more time. We're streaming into the George Espenlaub Show Facebook page. We're streaming into our YouTube page, and we're streaming into Twitter. Let me see real quick who we got here. That's the missus. She said hello, peeps. So hello right back at you.
George. Your
What?
wife calls you. Your wife calls you peeps.
Peeps. Yeah. Well, all three of us are peeps.
Gotcha.
Plural. You know,
People. Short for people, right?
right, right. But yeah, and she does every now and then. She'll call me peep. You know what I mean? Uh, after 53 years, I think I've been called everything, but peep is one of my favorites. You know what I'm saying? But anyhow, we have with us tonight Dan. Dan, if I get this all twisted up, Dan Franzese.
Exactly. 100% right. That's how I've always said it. Thank you.
All right, candidate for the U.S. Congress in Florida District 22 now. It was 21. Now it is 22. Wow. All these changes. And by the way, welcome, Ed.
Well, that took you long enough, George. I know I'm the sidekick, but you wait till the show's halfway over. But how you doing?
Well, sometimes I forget to even do that. It's nothing personal, brother. Nothing personal.
Nah, none taken.
Anyhow, Dan, it's a delight to have you tonight. I talked with you some yesterday. We had a good conversation, and I believe we're going to have a good show tonight. So come in and leave your comments. Just come in, put them in the comment section. We'll pop up if you have any questions. If you say hello, we'll pop that up too. Let us know where you're coming from. We'll pop that up. Anything and anything, we'll pop it right up on the screen so everybody can see it. And we want to have a good time tonight. So don't be bashful. Don't hide in the shadows. Come on in and let's get with it. Dan, I understand that you came from humble beginnings.
That's right. My father was a union carpenter with an 8th grade education. My mother was a homemaker with a 10th grade education. And I actually started working as a carpenter when I was 16. And that's how I helped put myself through college and graduate school. I was able to live the American dream, through hard work. So by the time I was 26, I'd gone from blue collar kid to Wharton MBA. It's the same school President Trump went to, by the way. And, I've lived the American dream, been a great beneficiary of it. And one of the many things I've been talking about on my campaign is I want to make sure future generations have those same opportunities that I had, because I was able to live the dream of where if you work hard, you can get ahead, and the government won't take it away from you, and they'll leave you be. And that's what you get when you have free people in a free country. And that's what I want to preserve for future generations.
It was definitely no walk in the park.
No, not at all. I carried many a concrete bag, many a pile of lumber, and hammered many a nails. And so I have a real appreciation for what it's like to be a working man. I mean, even though I've gone on to have a successful career in finance, I still think of myself as a working man. And I've lived in various economic stratosphere during my life, and I think that gives me a really broad appreciation for the country.
And do I understand? Excuse me. Do I understand that when you were going to college and you majored in political science, you served as an intern for a congressman?
That's right. So I've been interested in politics since I was a teenager, and I did major in political science, or poli-sci as we call it. But also back in my hometown, I volunteered every spare minute I had on a congressional campaign for a congressman from Long Island, where I was growing up at the time. And I got to know him. And following summer, I was granted an internship in his office on Capitol Hill. And that was summer of 1981. So that was the beginning of the Reagan Revolution. So it was a very exciting time to be there. And there were a number of times he let me follow him around to meetings, and that was the coolest thing. So, ever since then, I've had the interest in this, and I said, hey, it might be cool if someday I ran for office and ran for Congress. Well, here I am, but I'm not doing this because it's cool. I'm doing this because I think our country is in serious trouble, and good people who are able to need to stand up and get our country back on track.
Amen. Let me ask you this, and I ask all the candidates that we have on, regardless of what state they're from, why is it so important that people pays attention to your race in Florida?
So this is a seat that's been Democrat for about 10 years. This is a year where we are very confident with a good candidate and a good campaign, we can flip the seat red, and that will obviously help the overall numbers in the House of Representatives. We have an incumbent who is completely out of touch with the community. She has actually one of the most liberal voting records in the Congress. Yet everyone here, so many people in this district think she's right down the middle. Well, the answer is no, she's not. She's actually more liberal than AOC, and it's very important that message get out there and that we put this seat back into a conservative hands.
Hard to believe that somebody is more liberal than AOC and the gals from the squad.
Well, that's right. So of the four official members of the squad, Lois Frankel, the incumbent, has a more liberal voting record than three of them. The only person who edges her out is Ilhan Omar, who certainly is one of the worst in Congress. And people think of Palm Beach County, which is where I'm based here, as an affluent place that would be conservative, and I would say it's largely a conservative district or conservative county. Yet we're being represented by someone who doesn't represent the values of this community.
So I think you told me that the political bug bit you when you went to a Gerald Ford rally. Is that what it was?
Yeah, I'm gonna give away some numbers here. I was 14 years old. It was 1976, and I went to a rally with Gerald Ford, managed to push my way all the way to the front, actually got this close to him. And that was, very thrilling. I was heartbroken when he got beat. And, so glad when 4 years later, we won back the White House with President Reagan. But I would say that experience is what really, first gave me the bug. And I follow politics, like other people follow sports. And it's been a passion, both an intellectual passion, but also something, to do in my spare time. And, that's coming together now with me running for office. So this is my first time running for office. I've worked on many, many campaigns over the years. And this is exciting. It's actually being the candidate is quite different from supporting one, but it's been an excellent experience.
Ed?
All right. First, so I'm going to go a little bit, dive in a little bit deeper. So first, tell us why you're not a rhino.
So I'm a lifelong conservative, constitutional conservative. I've supported Mr. Trump. In fact, something you'll see on all of my campaign literature, I support President Trump's America First agenda. And so I've been very vocal supporter of his and conservatives for many years. And people say, well, why do you support the America First agenda? And you know why? Because it worked. And nothing like results, right? We had 4 years of world peace and domestic prosperity. Why in the heck we want to give that up, I don't know. But it's just amazing how quickly and how badly they've changed our direction of our country in just under a year and a half. And whenever I talk to liberals and they ask me, oh, why Trump? Oh, why do you like Trump? It's like, well, because it worked. And they actually don't know what to say most of the time. They go, oh, Trump. It's like, well, his tweets. It's like, well, okay, but I'll take those tweets over 13 dead Marines any day.
Yeah.
So okay, so a couple other, so one less. So your father did the same job as Jesus, and actually you did as well.
Yeah, I'm a carpenter's son. I guess you can say
Okay.
that.
Okay, so that's always a good sign, right?
I guess so. You're the first person,
Okay.
believe it or not, I thought that would come up a lot. You're the first person in an interview ever to bring that up. But it's, yes, I am a carpenter's son. That is true. And I was one myself.
Well, so Twitter, Elon Musk, what do you think about that? That's sort of related to the Trump America First.
Fantastic. I'm so glad to see a conservative businessman fight back and take a stand. I've been sick and tired of the Zuckerbergs and the Bill Gateses and all these people using their corporations and their own money to force a woke agenda on us. I've been saying for a long time, where are the conservative businessmen who can come back and take a stand against this? So I'm so happy to see that he's done that. I hope that sets a trend. I hope that we get more corporate leaders to speak out. In fact, I was just reading this morning that former CEO of McDonald's is out there very vocal saying, politics has no place in our stores. People come here to eat, and we're not going to bring politics in there. And that's the way it should be.
Well, there's been quite a bit of Time Magazine did an honest piece. Of course, they waited until after the election, but they did an honest piece that effectively said that this is how we rigged the election. And so, so they're admitting they did it after they've been, Twitter and Facebook and every other site has been, and then of course all the media have been for, months month after month, saying that the election was so secure, and but there's so many different ways that it's, now that even the courts are starting to finally, I would say wake up, but. I don't know if you remember early in the controversy of the election, there were people that were a guy named Joseph. I can't think of his last name, but make a long story short, he said that there's a lot of pressure put on these judges because he's a lawyer himself. And he said there's pressure put on these judges to not make the right decision. Is there anything as a legislator that you can do about that?
Well, you certainly make sure that anyone who's putting pressure on judges not to uphold the law should themselves be prosecuted. I mean, that's terrible. I mean, we expect judges to be above all that stuff and enforce the laws. So that's what you expect from me. I'm also glad to see that, for instance, our governor here, we have the best governor in the country here, Ron DeSantis. They've passed a number of bills that taken ballot harvesting from a misdemeanor to being a felony, and so increasing the penalties on anyone who wants to, who's doing various things that are tampering with elections. I would think certainly that same approach should be taken to anyone who tries to coerce or pressure or intimidate a judge.
Here's a question, and Mom, she put Governor to San Diego, and then after that she put DeSantis. Dang, wrong word, correct. But what is your position on Disney and Governor DeSantis?
Well, I think the governor is 100% right. I think that the bill that they passed, the one that they have given such an incorrect name to, I'm not even going to say it. The correct name is the Parental Rights in Education Law. It frankly puts our education of our kids back into the hands of the parents and keeps them from the schools from, giving non-age appropriate education and counseling on sex ed and transgender and so forth. I think so. I'm 100% behind what the governor and the legislature passed. I think Disney, it's terrible the way they're wading into this. And this gets back to what I was saying earlier. I think private corporations should be doing what they do, which is provide entertainment and not try to be political platforms. And so it's terrible what they're doing. But one of the things that's come out of this is something I wasn't aware of, just the extent to which the creative teams at Disney were already infiltrated by the woke mob, and they were subtly burying stuff into their cartoons and their movies that we weren't even expecting. I'm sure Mr. Walt Disney is rolling over his grave hearing that they about the kind of stuff that's been insinuated into his into his shows and his movies. And definitely they should do a 180 on that and get back to doing what they do. Same thing with sports. It's so unfortunate that one of my great escapes was always to watch a good football game or a good baseball game, just to get away from the world and enjoy it. They had to go politicize that too. And, I'd like to see that end. I mean, I'm all in favor of people speaking out and so forth, but, there's a time and a place for everything. And I want to watch a good football game. I don't want to read a political statement.
Right. So the primary in Florida is what, August 23rd, did you say?
That's right.
And there's 9 people in the running for the Republican Party.
That's right.
Wow. Do you anticipate that 9 being dwindled down a little bit before the primary gets here?
Yeah, I mean, that typically happens in races. The actual until the middle of June. So I suspect between now and then, maybe 1 or 2 will move to another district. 1 or 2 will decide, this just isn't fun anymore. I mean, I expect it'll be winnowed down. I don't want to predict who will drop or how many will drop, but I think that's a normal thing. I'm not dropping though. I've got the team and the resources to take this to the goal line. So I'm staying in this race.
Are you all going to have a debate?
There are several that have been scheduled, and including one this Friday afternoon. So yes, so that'll be the first one. It'll be interesting.
Have you seen any internal polling?
No, nothing's been done yet. I think it's too soon to be doing that.
What obviously this district has probably been Democrat for, I don't know how many, has it been decades? Has there been a break where there's been a Republican break through this? Because it seems to me it's ripe for a change at this point.
It's definitely ripe for a change. We've had a Democrat incumbent now for 10 years, but this was the seat that was held by Alan West for 1 term.
Oh, is that right?
That's right. That's
wow.
right.
That's really cool.
And before him, I think it was Democrat. So yeah, so largely Democrat, and this county still is Democrat majority, but at least as of a few months ago, it was 43% Republican. But I suspect it's gone a lot of good work being done, cleaning up the voting rolls, and also the anecdotal evidence. I haven't seen the scientific evidence, but the anecdotal evidence suggests that the influx of people moving to Florida are more Republican than they are Democrat. And so I think all these things are working in our favor to win back the seat this year.
So what separates you from the Republican candidates, and then I'm going to be more specific against the incumbent?
So I always tell people you should evaluate each of us on our merits and make your own decision. So you really don't talk too much about other candidates. I just tell people, take a look at me. I've been a successful businessman. I really did, grow up as a blue collar kid and became a self-made successful person. But I've done more than just be successful in a financial career. I've been successful at many other things, starting up a business. I served as chief financial officer of my church for 7 years and brought it back from big financial problems back to a balanced budget. And the thing one of the things I'm most proud of is I coached 8 seasons of Little League baseball and never had a losing season. Made it the playoffs a couple of times. Unfortunately, never made to the championship. But the reason I bring all these things up is every one of these things I do, I throw myself into it completely. Like, I didn't know how to coach baseball. I never played organized baseball. I was never CFO of a church. And in my financial career, there's so many different kinds of, transactions we did that no one ever done before. But I said, so what? We'll go in, we'll study the whole thing, we'll figure it out and get it done. And that's what you can expect from me, as a congressman.
When you get, when they throw out at you things like, you're just a typical wealthy Republican, how can you relate to the little guy?
Well, because I grew up as the little guy, I guess, in your example, and good number of my relatives still are working class blue collar people. So I have a much better appreciation for the working class people in this country, and so that's certainly comes out of that. And Moreover, I was successful in this country. I've seen it. I know how you do it, and I want to preserve that opportunity for everybody, for everyone else. And one of the things we've seen time and again tried in this country is class warfare, and it doesn't work because the poor people in this country don't hate the rich. They want to be rich. They want the opportunity to be rich. And that's one of the things I feel very strongly everyone has the opportunity to get ahead. And that's one of the things we have to preserve in this country.
You mentioned about cleaning up some flaws in the election books there in Florida. What's some of the things that they have done?
Well, there's a group here that I'm not involved in, but I'll give them a plug anyway. It's called Defend Florida. This is a very large grassroots group that's been going out and checking the voting rolls and doing sampling. And they've come up with scores and scores and scores of bad registrations. Either people are dead or they don't live there or whatnot. And so it's just been a nitty gritty, roll up your sleeves, go through the voting lists and call them out. And that's been one of the biggest things that's done. Another thing in preparation for the upcoming election that I see this year more than ever before, organized attempts to create or train people how to be poll watchers. So we've got a Republican at every polling site and every vote counting site. So these are all the kind of things that are going to help. But cleaning up the voting rolls, is a big one, and making changes in things like ballot harvesting and for instance, I think the law, if I remember correctly, you cannot bring in more than 2 ballots for anyone else, period, full stop. Whereas before that, I think there was no limit on that, or certainly was a higher number. So these are all things that make me optimistic that we're going to, get a much fairer election this time around here in the state of Florida.
There's a question for you.
Mm-hmm.
Do you have an opinion on transgender in sports?
I think women's sports should be played by women, biological women. I think, I want to be fair to people, right? I mean, you want to give everyone an opportunity, but you can take that to an unfair extreme where in your attempts to be fair to that person, you wind up being fair to so many others. So I think in women's sports, only biological females should be playing in them. Or if they do compete, it shouldn't, there should be an asterisk and, not eligible for medal, for example. So I feel very strongly about that. Sports is such a good thing for young people, more than just the exercise. There's just so many life's lessons you learn from it. And some of these people, especially at the collegiate level of swimming, they've been training for 15, 18 years. And then now they can't win because, frankly, someone's cheated. Is the way I view it.
Well, yeah, even if a man uses steroids, he's disqualified from the Hall of Fame. So if a man is in a woman's sport, that's even worse than cheating with the steroids. But so let's talk about you said you were in agreement with America First, which is kind of hard not to be. But with respect to that, can you be more specific and talk about what you specifically agree with when it comes to President Trump?
Well, sure. I mean, let's just talk about our border, for example. We've got effectively we have a borderless country right now. We're paying the price for it. They're going to be doing permanent damage there. So I absolutely positively want us to finish building the wall, but do more than just build a wall, back it up with all the electronic and human resources to keep out the drugs, the human trafficking, the illegals, and so on.
Okay,
I'm not anti-immigration. I'm very pro-immigration, but very pro-legal immigration.
Yeah, I'm totally with you. What your opponent, when you make it to the general election, your opponent's going to call you a racist for believing that we should have a secure border. Can you explain how your political opinion on what should be done has zero to do with skin color?
It has nothing to do with skin color. It's about, protecting our country first. And like I said, I'm not anti-immigration. I just think it should be done in a way that's fair, because all these people we're letting in illegally is totally unfair to the people who spend 10 years doing it the right way. But also, it's within our rights to do it in a way that helps our country. And I think we have every country in the world feels that way. That when they let people in, they want it to be people who will be additive to the country. So that's how I view that.
If you could have your way, what tax system would be the most fair tax system?
Lower taxes, for sure. One of the things we've learned again and again and again through history, lower taxes brings businesses into this country. It brings manufacturing back to the country, and that's a simplified tax code. I think the complexity of our tax code is just ridiculous. I mean, I do not have a complex personal financial life, yet my federal tax return, I think, ran 180 pages. And, no way could I do that myself. I had to, have to hire an accountant to do that because there's so many numbers in there. So I would simplify it as much as possible, but certainly move toward lower taxes. I would also reduce and maybe, if we can pull it off, eliminate capital gains taxes. I think that will absolutely spur more investment in the country. And another thing is that they're kind of unfair. I mean, if you held an asset for 1 year or 10 years, the tax on it is the same. And if we can't eliminate it completely, perhaps we have it, gradually go down so that if you've held something, 5 years or 10 years, it's a much lower capital gains tax than if you owned it for 18 months. So, I mean, for hours about taxes, but it's certainly a passion of mine, and I think we were getting it right under the Trump administration and under the Reagan administration. Lowering taxes, ultimately stimulates more business and more jobs.
Well, I hear two things. Number one, just piggybacking on what you said, you were talking about the capital gains tax. If it weren't for the capital gains tax, I would actually be sitting on quite a bit of money right now because, for example, I had a stock, Chesapeake Energy, for example. It was a $5 stock. Of course, when the tax season came around, I had to pay all this capital gains tax, so I ended up having to sell all these stocks. It probably cost me, tens of thousands of dollars. And and so this crushes you if the capital gains tax was gone, you could actually continue investing and wait and be patient, a more patient investor. It's kind of crazy. But what do you think about a flat tax?
Yeah. First of all, on the capital gains, I know you're paying because I've been putting my money in the market for a long time. There are some stocks I've owned 20 and 25 years, and they're worth 10 times what I paid for them. And now I always have to say, should I trade out or not? Or, oh my God, I'm going to lose so much to taxes. Flat tax, that's an interesting one. That never comes up. I think it's something we should take another look at, or at least get us down to 2 or 3 brackets instead of whatever it is now, 5, 6, or 7. So I'm in favor of a simplified tax code. Just take a look at how much productive energy goes into doing your taxes.
Right.
Wasn't it Herman Cain that said he wanted to put everything on an index card, and then he backtracked, but it was really getting a lot of steam. Why can't we put these bills on a postcard? Why does it have to have all the other stuff?
You know what? This is something I'm warming up to that idea. Like I said, tax simplification is something I've always been in favor of, and fewer loopholes. But if you get rid of the loopholes, you can also lower the taxes. And I would simplify it, or it'd be great if we could come up with a number for a flat tax. That would be an interesting thing if we could pull that off, for sure.
It's been it's been a number of years ago now, but there was a very good conservative radio talk show host. You might have heard of him or known him, Neil Bortz, who for years, in fact, he wrote a book about it, for years had been working with some legislators on the flat tax and all the good things that could come if they would pass a flat tax. These taxes are killing us, and with the party that is in, we lost them. There
No,
he is. Okay. Did you fall off your chair, Dan?
no, I had to turn on a light. Actually, it's getting dark here.
Okay. Anyhow, these taxes are killing us, and with the party that's the majority in the House and the White House, they want to keep ringing them up, and we just, us people out here, we just can't take no more.
Yeah, I mean, our Revolutionary War was fought over tax rates that were in single digits, and that was enough to start a war back then. So what we have now is significantly higher, and obviously I think the government should ratchet that back. I'm also a believer in balanced budgets. I think all this national debt that we're racking up is I think it's over $30 trillion now. There will be a day when we can't finance that. So I think it's time for us, before that day of reckoning comes, to get back to a balanced budget today. So I would support a balanced budget amendment. It'll take time to work through it, because even before COVID, we were about $1 trillion a year in the hole overspending. But there are days I think we're spending our country into bankruptcy. And in fact, I remember when Obama ran for president, he said a national deficit of $8 or $9 trillion is irresponsible. Well, guess what? We're at more than triple that now, at 30. So I would like to see us, change the course there. That's not something we're going to fix overnight, unfortunately. It took us 30, 40 years to get into this hole. Right. But at least what we can do now is change the course, so over time that we can dig ourselves out of it and get back to a balanced budget.
You think we should continue to have a Federal Reserve?
You do need a central bank. So I think there needs to be some organization to play that role. Does it need to be necessarily the one we have now, or in the shape and form it's in now? That's a different topic. But there needs to be some organization in the middle there playing that role.
Should we ever get back to the gold standard?
It sounds good. I mean, the whole idea of your money being backed up by something and worth something, I still have yet to hear a plan to implement it that works. If you've got one, by all means, let me know. I mean, gold for years has been something that's always held its value. I mean, when all is said and done, though, it's not magical. It's another currency, but it's one that has, throughout history, throughout the world, has held value. And, if there is a way to get back to that, I'd like to hear it, but I just haven't heard of a convincing plan that's feasible to put it in place. If you got one, let me know.
I believe I know your answer, or what your answer is going to be, but where do you stand on abortion?
I'm a pro-life candidate. That's one of the top things I always put on my cards.
How about senior citizens? I can ask this question because I'm a senior citizen. But anyhow, how about senior citizens and their Social Security?
Well, look, I've paid into Social Security myself for over 40 years, ever since I was a teenager working, probably 43, 44 years. And I want my money back. And I think everyone else who's been paying into it their whole life has every right to expect their money back on the terms that were promised to them. If they make changes to it, it can't affect the people that have been paying in. It should only affect, future people, coming into the system. So I view the Social Security and Medicare as sacrosanct. I mean, these, and I can speak from, like I said, from my own personal experience from having paid into it for so many years. But over and above that, our government has to honor its obligations. Even if I wasn't someone that benefited from it or expected to benefit, I'd say, well, our government has to honor its obligations. It's just the right thing to do.
Mm-hmm. What about, do you think that the Supreme Court will overturn Roe versus Wade?
It could be. I mean, I'm not a legal scholar. I think you have enough conservative justices in there that there's a shot at it. I've heard many people say that the law of Roe versus Wade was not well constructed legal opinions. So I think there's a realistic chance of it, but I don't want to handicap it any more than that. but I think it's a realistic chance. I really do.
You are all for term limits.
That's right. I very early on signed the term limits pledge, but the term limits pledge that I signed only said that when I go to Congress, I will vote to implement term limits. So I've signed that. I've also taken a step further by vowing to serve no more than 3 terms. And reason for that is I think this is the only way you're going to get government by the people is if you have a steady flow of people coming in there. Without that, what you get is a ruling class that's been there for 30, 40, 50 years that have completely lost touch, with the country. One of the arguments I always hear against it is, well, if a congressman's no good, you just vote them out and so on. Yeah, in theory, that sounds good, but it doesn't work that way. Incumbents have, tremendous advantage over challengers. And this is a way to ensure that you get a steady flow there. And what's going on in Washington really represents what the people are thinking, because what we have there now is people overwhelmingly who have been creatures of Washington for the majority of their careers. So they're not really truly representing the people. So I'm a passionate defender of term limits.
Let me ask you this. When someone introduces a bill, and let's just use the military as an example. They introduce a bill to give the military a pay raise. And so they write this bill out, blah, 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 military pay raise. By the time they're done with that puppy, they stuffed it with so many things that, like Ed was talking about, it's no longer on an index card. It's pages and pages and pages full of so much stuff that it's completely crazy.
Mm-hmm.
How would you deal with that?
Well, I mean, it's, that's part of the Washington game. I mean, the big infrastructure bills, they were pushing only put $250 billion to infrastructure.
Right.
And they jammed through all kinds of social programs. The name on the bill gave them air cover to put through stuff that's, that wasn't in there. I'll vote against these things, that's for sure, and speak out against them. I mean, that's the thing to do. It's not illegal to do that, but it's certainly unethical. And in my opinion, poor statesmanship to do stuff like that. So I will speak out against it and vote against it.
There's a question, opinion on Medicare being taken out of Social Security.
I'm sorry, you cut out there for a second. Would you mind repeating that?
What's your opinion on Medicare being taken out of Social Security? Like all our working lives, we paid into Medicare. And now when you get Social Security checks, the first thing they chop off is your Medicare. And that has become astronomical. Every year it goes up.
Mm-hmm.
So that don't help the elderly people none.
No, I mean, I get back to something I said earlier. The government needs to honor its obligations. People have been paying into these programs for decades and maybe even half a century in many cases. And, we can't keep chipping away and chiseling away at the benefits that they're getting. The benefits need to reflect what their costs are for medical care and prescription drugs and so forth.
Would you be willing for individuals to have a private privatize their own Social Security?
I think more options are always better than fewer, and I'd be, people shouldn't be forced to do that. People should be allowed to stay in the current plan with the current benefits, but I'm very open-minded toward a parallel, privatized version. If that's, I would absolutely be in favor of that. But optional, it's not something people are forced into, and they could stay with what they have now. More choices are always better than fewer.
Well, what gives you, what encourages you in terms of your chances of winning this election?
So I a lot of things. I talked earlier about just the cleaning up the voting rolls in the district here. We definitely feel that's going to make it a more Republican-friendly district. People moving into the district, we think are overwhelmingly, or at least majority, Republican. Over and above that, there's tremendous dissatisfaction with the direction of the country. I mean, I have so many friends who are Democrats who I know voted for Joe Biden, and they're absolutely horrified about what's going on. The interesting thing is they tell me this, then they say, but don't tell anybody, because they're just, they're afraid to have it get out. But in fact, some of my most liberal friends have been big donors to my campaign. And because they said, wait a minute, we thought Joe Biden was going to be moderate Joe, cool things down, get our country back on track. Well, that's not what's happened at all. He's many days he's throwing gasoline on our country. And so I know a lot of Democrats are horrified. So, one thing I often hear from conservatives is, oh, you can't argue with a liberal. They're so brainwashed, they'll never change. And I say, well, you know what? That's true of quite a few of them. But here's the good news. We don't have to convince all of them. If we get 5 to 8% of them to flip, we'll win back this seat and maybe every seat in the country. And I actually think already done that work for me. I think somebody has already convinced them that 5 to 8% to flip. And his name is Joe Biden. Yeah. I think he's already done that work for me and for everyone else. So I guess that's the silver lining. Truthfully, I wish he'd done a good job as president, and we wouldn't have this upcoming red wave. It would be better for our country. But this, at least the silver lining, is that it presents an opportunity for us to take back this seat.
I had a question for you. It's right on the tip of my tongue, but my 1/2 brain cell just flickered out. Maybe it'll pop back. Ed, you got a question? I'll think about this.
Yeah. I was. You're just talking about what what gives you hope, what separates you, what a little bit more brave question. So, what would you, with respect to Trump, because people can relate to the Trump presidency, what would you have taken further, and what would you do differently than Trump did?
One thing I would take further is I would finish the wall for sure, and short up all the immigration, and that's for sure one thing. That's a key thing that comes to mind. I think he doesn't get credit for how successful his presidency was. We raised the economic status of the entire country. It wasn't just the rich that did better under him. It was, minority people also had record low unemployment. So I think he headed it in the right direction. I mean, in many ways, the stuff he did right was quite similar to the first president I voted for, Mr. Reagan. By lowering regulations, lowering taxes, the old saying, rising tides lift all ships. Well, it did. The entire country benefited from it. Those are some of my thoughts to your question.
What if, I'm sure you do, if you run into people that says, well, there's no need for me to vote because they're going to do what they want to do, people that think and talk along those lines, if you do, or you have run into those type of people, what's your answer?
Interestingly, not all that many that I hear that from. I heard that from a year ago, but the few people that say that to me, they'll say, "Oh, why should I bother voting? It's a rigged system. They're just going to give the answer they want." And I tell them, "Shame on you. You do that, you're letting them win. Right. So shame on you. You need to get out and vote." I also tell people, vote in person. Don't do mail-in. I think there's a better chance or a lesser chance of someone altering your ballot if you bring it in person and do it there. But I always tell people, don't lose the faith. There's a lot of good people, a lot of good governors like our governor here, DeSantis, who are cleaning up the issues that we have, so we can be confident we have fair elections. And it's important that fair elections. If you have elections that people are disputing again and again and again, we're not going to last long as a country. Right. So we need we need to shore it up. The sad thing is we've made it very easy to cheat in our elections, really easy. And And so shouldn't be surprised if you see, significant evidence of it. I mean, we have only ourselves to blame for that. So we need to do things like getting back to photo ID and significantly reducing absentee balloting. In fact, that wouldn't bother me at all if we eliminated it for everyone other than people who truly can't come in, especially if you have 2 weeks of early voting. If you can't make it in during that, maybe you don't even live there. So I feel pretty strongly about all these things.
How about the gas prices? Should we be drilling and producing in our own country?
100%. So I, in my day job, I spent about 20 years financing the domestic energy industry. So I financed oil, natural gas, geothermal, wind, solar. I financed everything other than nuclear, but I hope to someday. And so I've got a good understanding of those industries. And when I saw that they shut down the Keystone Pipeline, and when I saw early on that they were shutting down the drilling in the U.S., I was saying, oh my God, I bet it wouldn't surprise me if we have $5 gas in a year. So that's what I said last January. So I wasn't exactly right. Around us, so it's $4, but I got the direction right. And in fact, I said, and here we are. I think we absolutely need to unleash our domestic energy production to get gasoline back into the $2 range, where frankly, I think it should be. But it's more than just an economic issue. Energy is both an economic issue and a national security issue.
Right.
And I think, take a look at Europe, for example. Well, how was Putin paying for his war? Well, Germany buys about $1 billion a day of natural gas from them, because without it, the lights will go out in their country. So that's how he's paying for it. How'd they get into that mess of being dependent on a maniac dictator? Well, they shut down all their nuclear plants and they shut down all their coal-powered electric plants in their country, which, if that's the direction you want to go, that's it's up to them to decide that. But they foolishly then pointed themselves into a very unreliable, unstable source of energy. So I'd be all in favor of ramping up our production here in the U.S., get it down to $2 per gallon, get us to be energy independent. In fact, more than independent, energy surplus, and then we can be the ones supplying liquefied natural gas to Western Europe if that's how they want to power their countries. So I'm all in favor of unleashing it. And everyone says, oh, well, the pollution and all that. Well, the reality is, if you take a look at the maps of which countries are clean and which countries are the polluters, we're one of the cleanest in the world. Russia, China, and India, they're some of the biggest polluters. So we are, clean producers of energy. And then we hear Biden is shopping around to Iran and Venezuela to make up the energy supply. It's like, hold on, really? You're gonna go to dictators to get your energy? And by the way, they're not clean producers. Bring it back home, create jobs here. Don't forget jobs. There's cleaner energy and national security. Up till about a year and a half ago, the United States had the cheapest energy in the world among major countries. That gave our country not only national security, but just a huge economic advantage in world business. And we just gave it away. So, I don't know. I could go for another hour, but I think you'll see that I feel very strongly we need to get back to energy independence and do it fast. There's so many reasons for it: economic, political, you name it.
Have you gotten any big endorsements from anybody? Anyone that has put their name out there and said, "This is a guy"?
Just a couple of weeks ago, I was endorsed by America's Mayor, Rudy Giuliani. And he did more than just say, I endorse this guy. He took it a step further to say that I'm the most experienced and qualified candidate in the race. And he thinks I'm the one best positioned to beat Lois Frankel this fall. So he went on record saying that. And so that's thrilling to me for many reasons, not only this race, but personally, Rudy is one of my personal heroes. So I actually lived in New York City during the time he was the mayor, and I saw the way he transformed the city. He took the city that what everyone said was broken and couldn't be fixed, and he fixed it. And he did it, by being relentless, by never taking no for an answer. And that's how he cleaned it up. And that's how I am and been my whole life. No matter what I've gone after, that's how I've been successful in the business world, and that's the kind of congressman I will be.
I'm actually thrilled that you're in that energy industry. That just tickles me. Really.
Well, I'm not really in the industry, just so you know. I've worked with companies in that industry and helped them raise growth capital, and that's a key part of what I've done in my career. And obviously, when you're working with them and helping them find investors, you get to learn those industries. And so that's another skill set I brings to the table. But also, I have my degree in finance, 38 years. And I think some of the biggest issues facing our country today are financial, especially inflation, which is something we haven't even talked about yet. I mean, I saw it coming. I definitely saw it coming, right when I saw all the things that Biden was doing. And, what's the latest number? It's somewhere between 8 and 10%. But even that understates it, because especially for the working class, because
Right.
the goods that make up such a large percentage of their discretionary income have been hit the hardest, like gasoline and groceries. We got to put a stop to it. And
How do we do that? How do we put a stop to the inflation?
I'm glad you asked. So people say, all right, Mr. Financial expert, what do we do? And the answer is stop doing all the dumb things that got us here.
Yeah.
So we got to stop the deficit spending. When you spend more money against a fixed number of goods, you inevitably drive up the price. So we've got to stop the deficit spending. And like I said earlier, I'm a big believer in balanced budgets. We must never again pay people to stay home and not work. I think we're going to pay the price for that for years. It's one of the things that's fueled inflation. It's fueled these supply bottlenecks we keep talking about. But what I keep hearing about is an increased unwillingness to work. These are all bad things for our country.
Mm-hmm.
Another thing, of course, to get the inflation under control is we talked about it for a few minutes, about energy. Definitely got to unleash our domestic energy production and get gasoline back into the $2 range, which is where I feel it should be. Another thing is we do need to let interest rates creep up. I am glad to see the Federal Reserve is taking a stronger stance on that. I mean that there's so many nuances to that, but I look again, it's many of the retired people I talk to every day while I'm out campaigning. They see prices going up 8 and 10%. They got their money in the bank and it's earning 1 or 2%. I mean, that's so you need to for those people, you need to let rates rise up to more natural levels so they have a fighting chance. So those so again, stop the dumb things that gave us inflation. It's pretty clear to me what the causes were and how to go about fixing it. This is something that obviously plays to one of my strengths, just given my background in finance and economics.
We only have a little bit of time left. Do you support Israel?
100%. I mean, that's always something that I was put on in my campaign literature as one of my key points. There's so many reasons for it. It's obviously a shared culture. It's our holding land. There's just a lot of reasons of that sort. But there's also good strategic reasons for it. It's been our best and most loyal ally in the Middle East. But I would take it a step further. I mean, I admire Israel. These are tough, smart people who are surrounded by their enemies, and they keep it going. So that's a country that's worthy of our support. So absolutely. I'm not wearing it now, but I often do wear a pin that's got both the Israeli and American flag on it. So I am a big supporter of Israel, 100%.
Wonderful. Ed, only got a little bit of time.
Yeah, I think that was a pretty good question. The inflation numbers, I don't know where they're getting them from, because I know when I shop, and I shop myself, I don't have somebody shopping for me. I'm looking at things that were $2 that are selling for $3.20. I don't know where they're getting the 8% or the 5%, but it's certainly not 8 or 5%. I can tell you I have less bills this year, but less money even after raises. So there's clearly the 8%. I understand there's gas prices. That's also, obviously is way up. So what's your expectations with respect to the inflation this year? And is it, you think it's going to continue to rise, or do you think it's going to some magic way going to go down?
I hate to be the bearer of the bad news, but it's not going to be transitory. Once that genie gets out of the bottle, it's a hard thing to tame. And wouldn't shock me if we have another year of 10% or more inflation. That's the sad reality, because the government that's in charge, they're not taking the steps I just talked about. And I think it's sad to say, I think it's going to be at least another 10% more on top of 10%. I mean, the hard reality of that, assuming that's even the right number, and you're right, because there's so many goods people buy that are up 20 and 30%. But the hard reality is, if you had $100 in the bank last year, it only has $90 worth of buying power this year. And a year from now, it's going to be $80. That's scary, especially coming after so many years and decades where we had stable prices. This is a shock people just aren't prepared for. I mean, you keep hearing all these jokes about, I don't know, Muhammad Ali was the champion boxer last time we had inflation this bad. I mean, or Duran was, I think, in the top in the singles charts. I mean, it's so long ago, and this is a real shock to people. And so when I do get out and talk to a lot of voters, and after I introduce myself and give them my spiel, I say, so what's on your mind? What do you think are the biggest issues I should be thinking about? I'll tell you again and again and again. It's inflation, the economy, immigration. Those are the biggies that keep coming up. And, what else comes up a lot? Safe streets. I mean, thankfully, we live in a very safe community here where I am now, but we all read about what's going on in the cities, how fast they did a 180 in terms of crime. So, but another thing that comes up, and it's been a big theme of my campaign, is small businesses. People forget that small businesses are the biggest job creators in this country. And in fact, growing up, my wife's father had a small printing business. So that's how they put the food on the table. And believe it or not, remember I said I started working when I was 16? Well, I was working for a small business. It was actually my much older brother's construction company. And so I up close and personally have a lot of exposure to small businesses. And they always get taken for granted. And so I'm a big supporter. And that's certainly one of the themes of my campaigns.
Wow. Time goes by when you're having fun. Dan, it has been so informative tonight. And Mrs. Espenlaub said, very informative tonight. Best of luck in your campaign.
Thank you.
I had a good time. And ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, friends, Romans, and countrymen, I hope you did too. And please share this out so that more and more and more people, near, far, can come in and listen to what Dan had to say. Ed, your final thoughts?
Well, hey, listen, pre-show was a slam dunk. I said, is there any question that's off limits? And the answer was no. And that's what we want to hear. You guys we're going to run this country. You got to be bold and tough enough to be open and to be honest and to be willing to do whatever it takes. We appreciate that.
Sure thing. If I may, I'd like to just put in a plug for my website. It's if you want to learn more about me, and if you like what you hear and want to contribute to my campaign, you could do this all at my website. It's the 3 W's, dan4fl.com. So that's the word 4 or the number 4, each one works, and then FL, the abbreviation for Florida. So dan4fl.com.
There you have it, ladies and gentlemen. Wow. Thursday night. This is Tuesday. I keep forgetting. I get my days mixed up. Thursday night. We'll be back again at 7:30 p.m. Eastern time, and we will be having, I think for the third time, Ed, Dr. Sanders again. We usually get a fire lit under people when she comes on. So join us Thursday night, 7:30 p.m. Eastern time. Thank you so very, very much, Dan. Best of luck to you. Please keep in touch. We'll have you back again if you want to come back.
Oh, this has been great. You guys asked me a lot of really good questions, and looking forward to continuing on all these topics at some point in the future.
All righty.
What's that website again?
So it's dan4fl.com. So Dan, my name, 4 FOR, FL, the abbreviation for Florida, dan4fl.com. if you go there, you'll find the usual. There's a 3-minute, I promise it's only 3-minute campaign kickoff video, really tells you my story. Of course, there's an issues page, a biography page, and every page, I can't run a campaign without this. It takes a lot of money to run a successful campaign. Every page has a red Donate Now button where you can donate directly on the website.
Okie dokie. We ran an hour and 46 seconds. They'll probably cut the last 46 seconds off because we had an hour. But nonetheless, it was great. And so, good night, everybody.